Should we talk about some of the reforms that will be targeting those
Yes.
people, some of the measures proposed?
Let's rattle through.
So I think, first of all, is the English language requirements,
Mm.
which you touched on earlier, which is they're going to raise basically the proficiency in English that you need, which I think what we're talking about here is people that are coming here on student or work visas.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense that if you're coming to work in the UK or study in the UK, that you would need some level of proficiency in English. Like, again, just for clarity, like, we're not talking about people that are coming here on like the Afghan visa, people that were fleeing war, or like the Ukraine visa,
Mm-hmm.
and people that are coming here as refugees. These people are coming because they have work visas or student visas.
Mm-hmm. However, I think it's still maybe a rogue opinion, but I don't think it's a bad idea for anybody that's coming into any country to learn some sort of proficiency in the language of that country. Because again, it speeds up integration. It helps you assimilate into society. Whether you're a refugee or whether you are an economic immigrant, I don't think it's a bad idea either way for you to be learning English.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, countries like Germany do it, you know.
I think the other point that is important on the care worker and ending the recruitment is that in the white paper, Labour said to fill this gap, what they would do is improve paying conditions in the sector for workers, which I thought was quite a shocking thing to say, because essentially what you're saying then is that you're happy to have 2 tiers of workers' rights.
Mm-hmm.
One's for people that come over here on workers' visas as immigrants to the country, and one for your white British person.
Yep.
Even though already there are many white British people working in the social care sector, essentially you're happy for them to be on lower paying conditions than you know they should be.
Yeah. And what does it say as well for those people that work in the sector already, that they have not gotten a pay rise up until this point? Like, the only thing that's giving them a pay rise is we want to get rid of all of the non-English people in the sector.
Exactly.
You know?
The other thing which you touched on was the increased residency before you can claim citizenship. So they want to increase it to 10 years of residency before you can claim citizenship. Removing Article 8, which is so they want to disapply Article 8, which is the ECHR's right to family life, from immigrants who have committed a crime in the UK. And often in the courts, that right to family life is used as an appeal for a reason why people who've committed a crime while on a visa should be allowed to stay in the UK. And they're proposing revoking that right for immigrants to the country. Nadia Whittome was very concerned about that because of the precedent it sets. When you're allowed to start disapplying certain aspects of human rights from immigrants, that is a slippery slope and quite a concerning precedent, she was arguing. And then the final group that this really applies to is students and student visas. They're concerned about how many student visas are being given out, and specifically at what institutions. I can't remember the wording that they used exactly, but basically they were saying that at the UK's top institutions, the applicants for international students has actually decreased by 7%. But at the institutions that perhaps have lower entry requirements to get in, they've increased by 49%. Obviously, the knock-on effect of this is funding for the universities, because a lot of universities now in the sector relies on international students. So their question will be, well, where are we getting funding from if you're cracking down on how many students can come and study with us?
I also wonder how much of the kind of the transfer from top universities to second-tier university, for want of a better word, is to do with the change in non-EU and EU fees. EU fees in 2021, I think. It changed from it's now international fees for EU students in the UK. And obviously, in the UK, some universities charge a lot more than other universities for a year of a course. And I'd wonder if, obviously, you've got like the big hitters of the like East Asian American students in the UK, and South Asian students as well. But I mean, it was still a big destination for European students to come to the UK to study in Oxbridge or wherever, in Russell Group universities. So I'd wonder if that shift is down to Brexit. Well, we could blame everything on Brexit, actually, couldn't we, Laura? But I'd say there's a portion there that has to do with that.
I think also, if we are going to talk about Brexit, it is kind of mad that Nigel Farage, the man who promised that migration to this country was going to be cut drastically by leaving the European Union, is now the same man that's saying that, well, if you vote for reform, we'll cut it drastically for the Europe. We'll cut migration drastically. And it's like, you promised to do it the first time, it didn't happen. And you're just doing it again.
Yeah. Oh, it's only because I'm not in charge. On the student thing as well, though, I think it's interesting to remember that in last year's immigration numbers was when the headcount of students was included in the immigration numbers, which resulted in a big increase. I mean, there was an increase anyway, but a very significant increase in inward migration into the UK. And so I'd wonder if, had there not been a change in how inward migration was measured, would students be part of the white paper whatsoever?
I think it's interesting as well, because one of the issues that the Labour government seemed to have with the workers' visas and the students' visas was this idea of dependence. And one of the things they really want to, quote unquote, crack down on is the bringing over of dependents with students or with workers. The other thing around language that I found interesting in this white paper is the difference between high skill and low skill work, and how Labour want to increase migration amongst high skill workers and decrease it amongst low skill. And in low skill they've included things like health and care work. But I think that's interesting, because surely those are the exact skills that we need in this country. Like, do we really need more consultants and wealth managers? Or do we need more care workers? And also, what's more valuable and productive for the economy?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of taking every aspect of the well-being of a society in complete isolation from one another. Obviously, health and care are very important jobs. There is no high skill and low skill in any of these things. So to that point, it is just taking in isolation one thing, i.e. migration, and saying cutting migration is going to have no tangible impact on any of the other aspects of British society. We're going to be able to plug the gaps in care, health, whatever it might be, with something. They're not saying what the other thing is. They're just saying, well, we're allowing people in for these high-skilled jobs, the nuclear scientists, the tech bros, the KPMG consultants. But then don't worry about the NHS. People will work in that. We'll find someone to work in that. Maybe the people that they're cutting PIP from are going to start working in the NHS.
Yeah, like, don't worry, we'll hire Deloitte to do some consultancy, and they'll tell us what to do.
We'll just get rid of 5 hospitals and increase capacity in none of them, and increase staffing in none of them, and it's all going to work out fine. We're still going to reduce the waiting list. How? Because the assisted dying bill is coming through.
Oh no.